Vitamin D. This is presented by Vitamin Group 2. Andrea DeLuque, Maria Nolasco, Dat Nguyen, Stephanie Portillo, Destiny Mitchell, and Chastity Deanne. The journey through vitamin D. You will first take a look at the definition with Andrea DeLuque, followed by the history from Maria Nolasco. Learn the synthesis through Dat Nguyen. Discover usages and benefits from Stephanie Portillo, and learn interesting facts from Destiny Mitchell and Chastity Deanne. The definition of vitamin D. Vitamin D is a steroid vitamin that is important for the absorption of calcium. It is found in our liver and in fish oils. Did you know? There are 3 vitamin Ds. Vitamin D1 is a mixture of lumpsterol and calciferol. These are a steroid compound produced when egg sterol is exposed to ultraviolet. Vitamin D is just calciferol, and vitamin D3 is the most famous one that we know that is found in supplements such as milk, fish oils, and our liver. So what are the differences in vitamin Ds? The molecule structures.
This is Sir Edward Millenby. He was born April 8, 1984, and he died January 30th, 1955. He is from Great Britain, which makes him the best scientist ever. And because he is from Great Britain, he gets his own slide on the PowerPoint. Sir Edward Millenby became very concerned with the English disease known as Riddick's that he decided to take on the case himself and find a cure. He believed the reason for this disease was caused by a poor nutritional diet. At the time, Scotland had the highest incidence of Riddick's, and therefore Sir Edward Millenby decided to use their diet as an experiment to see what caused Riddick's. He decided to experiment on caged dogs by feeding them porridge, and he kept them indoors away from sunlight. They ended up developing Riddick's as well, which was identical to the human disease. He discovered that he could cure the disease by providing cod liver oil into one's diet. This would prevent others from developing the Riddick's disease, also known as the English disease. He then concluded that Riddick's can be prevented by adding vitamin D into one's diet. This is another discovery of the healing of Riddick's by UV light with vitamin D. Professor Harry Steenbach from the University of Wisconsin discovered that exposure to the sunlight would cure one from Riddick's. He is not from Great Britain, so therefore he doesn't get his own slide on the PowerPoint, and his picture is not as big compared to Sir Edward Millenby, because Sir Edward is the best since he's from Great Britain. Professor Harry was working with an animal experiment when he discovered that Riddick's were being healed by the exposure of sunlight compared to another group of animals he kept indoors. They ended up developing the Riddick's disease. He noticed that those animals could be cured when he took them outside and they were exposed by sunlight. Therefore, since both discoveries, it is concluded that the actual disease of Riddick's is due to lack of vitamin D to lack of sunlight, which can be prevented or cured by maintaining a nutritional diet that contains vitamin D. Therefore, vitamin D can also be found in food and can also be produced by being outside in the sunlight.
Okay, so from this slide and for the next few slides, we're going to talk about vitamin D synthesis. Now, vitamin D synthesis is basically a process of making vitamin D useful. and is where we take vitamin D from an external source such as food or the sunlight and converted it into something completely different or something that is biologically useful. And this could be seen as, converted into a hormone or a hormone steroid to help us with regulating the calcium, the calcium level in our blood and the phosphorus level in our blood. With this, we're going to start at the skin, is where the vitamin D synthesis begin, and then we're going to go into the liver, and then we're going to go into the kidney. So with that being said, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the process of actually synthesizing vitamin D and how all that works. We're going to go through, all the necessary steps that the body takes to turn something from an external source, such as from food or sunlight, into something that we can actually use biologically. Now, the process of making vitamin D into something that is biologically useful is a truly amazing process. And most animals, they're able to do this. And how this works is that vitamin D synthesis actually starts with the skin. And within the skin itself, there is a steroid called 7-dihydrocholesterol, or DHC, that's actually beginning the process of synthesis. It absorbs ultraviolet light, UVB, and then turn it into a pre-vitamin D3. From there, it automatically convert or metabolize that into vitamin D itself, and that vitamin D is then stored within the liver for use. Okay, so with this slide, we're further going to go into the vitamin D synthesis process. And more specifically, we're going to look at the vitamin D that is stored within the liver and how our body can turn those vitamin Ds into something that we can actually use. When that vitamin D when our body needs vitamin D, it's of course going to go to the liver. And the liver is then going to turn that vitamin D into 25 hydroxide vitamin D. And then that 25 hydroxide vitamin D is going to again be transported into the kidney, where it will be metabolized into a more biologically active form in terms of the structure of it. I believe it's going to be turned into more of a hormone rather than a vitamin. But this is called 125 dihydroxide vitamin D3. And it's also known as calcitrol. Now, calcitrol is a steroid hormone that is primarily used to regulate the calcium and phosphorus level within the blood. Right, and so at this point where the sun's ultraviolet light it can be absorbed by our skin and turn into a steroid hormone that is used to regulate calcium level and phosphorus level within the blood. It's pretty much the complete of the synthesis process.
Vitamin D usage is really important for the human body. It's required for the regulation of minerals, calcium, and phosphorus found in the body. Sun exposure is usually the easiest and reliable way that most people get vitamin D. Also, vitamin D is found in chicken, sun, of course, just like I said. Egg yolk, cheese, supplemental vitamins, and also different types of mushrooms. Now, vitamin D usage treats weak bones, softening of the bones, and taking vitamin D will treat that. Something else that vitamin D is used for is to prevent vitamin D deficiency. Like I said, you can get it from a supplemental vitamin. Also, vitamin D treats low blood calcium level, and low blood calcium levels is due to low thyroid hormone levels or different hormone disorders. It also treats low levels of phosphate in the blood due to diseases called Fanconi syndrome or different causes. It also treats psoriasis, which is a skin condition. Usually people can use like a cream that has vitamin D, and then that can treat psoriasis. So those are the usages of vitamin D. Vitamin D benefits there's a lot. There's a lot of benefits from vitamin D. Like I said, most people get their vitamin D from the sun, supplemental vitamins, different sources. The benefits of vitamin D, one of them is it reduces the risk of illness like diabetes, flu, and even cancer. It also promotes healthy bones. Like I said before, calcium is used to treat weak bones. Therefore, it benefits to promote healthy, strong bones. Also, vitamin D benefits and regulates cell growth. It's said to be very important for a pregnant woman, for the baby to have enough vitamin D, the mother to have enough vitamin D for the baby, because it promotes, regulates cell growth, and cell growth is known to be linked to having cancer. So that's a really big benefit. It also helps the baby to not have so many food allergies once they're born. But those right there are the benefits of vitamin D.
This slide covers some of the interesting facts about vitamin D. There are two chemical forms of vitamin D. These are known as vitamin D2, which is referred to as ergocalciferol, and vitamin D3, which is referred to as cholecalciferol. Vitamin D is produced by your skin in response to ultraviolet radiation from natural sunlight. Sunlight exposure is the only reliable way to generate vitamin D in your own body. Most people believe that vitamin D is something that can be bought, but it's natural and comes from natural sunlight. If you suffer from chronic vitamin D deficiency, it takes months of sunlight exposure to rebuild the body's bones and nervous system. Even things such as weak sunscreen can block your body's ability to generate vitamin D, and this is mostly how people catch diseases. It is impossible to generate too much vitamin D because your body will only generate what it needs. The rays of sunlight that produce vitamin D in your skin cannot penetrate glass. So this means that you cannot get vitamin D by sitting in a car or being at home. Your body must have vitamin D in order to function properly. Vitamin D is something that absorbs calcium and promotes bone growth in our bodies. So without it, we wouldn't have our bone strength. And lastly, too little vitamin D can result in rickets in children and fragile bones in adults. So as you can see, vitamin D is ultimately very important and something that comes naturally and very beneficial for our bodies.
A person would have to drink 10 tall glasses of vitamin D fortified milk each day just to get the minimal levels of vitamin D needed into their diet. The amount of vitamin D put into milk was chosen so that small toddlers or kids would not be able to overdose on vitamin D. Vitamin D is important in the prevention of osteoporosis, depression, prostate cancer, and also breast cancer. Research indicates that an insufficient amount of vitamin D may cause diabetes and obesity. Studies show that as many as 3 out of 4 Americans suffer from vitamin D deficiency. A study published in 2009 in the Archives of Internal Medicine found that 70% of Caucasians, 90% of Hispanics, and 97% of African Americans in the U.S. have insufficient blood levels of vitamin D. It is thought to be the most common medical condition in the world, affecting over 1 billion people, and we now have research showing just how essential vitamin D is to our health. Studies have shown that vitamin D deficiency may imprint on an infant for the rest of his or her life. Infants that are deficient at birth can remain vitamin D deficient for the first several months, even after birth, which may put them at risk of developing many chronic diseases much later in life. One of the most frequent childhood diseases in many developing countries is rickets. The predominant cause is a vitamin D deficiency, but lack of adequate calcium may also lead to rickets. Rickets is a softening of bones caused by severe vitamin D deficiency and can potentially lead to bow legs and arms and other deformities.